In a world where the spotlight never dims, the latest maneuvers from Montecito suggest that 2026 might just be the most desperate chapter yet for Harry and Meghan as they battle for relevance against a backdrop of dwindling contracts and a decidedly chilly reception from the palace. Good evening to you all, and thank you for joining me once again to peel back the layers of what has become the world's most exhausting, long-running soap opera. It's a pleasure to speak with such a discerning audience who, like me, prefers to look past the gloss and see the machinery grinding away behind the scenes. We must begin with the spectacle that unfolded only hours ago at the NBA All-Star Game in Los Angeles. There they were, front and center, perched courtside in the Intuit Dome, seemingly desperate to prove to the world that they are still the it couple of the moment. Meghan, draped in navy knitwear that was no doubt selected for its effortless appeal, spent much of the evening performing for the Jumbotron. A source behind closed doors has whispered that this appearance was anything but a casual date night. It was, in fact, a carefully curated exercise in brand preservation. While the cameras captured them smiling and whispering, a well-meaning staff member suggests the mood behind the scenes was far more clinical. Harry in his gray baseball cap often looked like a man who would rather be anywhere else, perhaps contemplating the irony of fleeing the British press only to spend his weekends posing for the American version of it. A source within the inner circle noted that Meghan's frequent tactile displays, the arm stroking, the leaning in, were less about affection and more about ensuring the photographers got the loved-up narrative they were looking for. It's all a bit transparent, isn't it? The public can usually sense when a performance is being staged, and this had all the hallmarks of a PR salvage operation. And why do they need a salvage operation? Because the cracks in the business empire are no longer just whispers. They are loud, echoing booms. We've recently learned that the much-vaunted $100 million Netflix deal, which was once touted as their golden ticket to Hollywood autonomy, has finally hit the buffers. While there was a brief extension last summer, the word in the industry is that the streaming giant has finally realized that the return on investment simply isn't there. A well-placed source suggests that Netflix executives have grown weary of the development phase that never seems to end. We've seen the With Love Meghan lifestyle show, but where is the substance? Instead, we are being treated to the Cookie Queens documentary, which they executive produced and premiered at Sundance in late January. One has to wonder how a couple who once lectured the world on global diplomacy and mental health has pivoted so sharply to a film about Girl Scouts and their cookie-selling ambitions. It feels like a significant step down, a scrambling for content to satisfy the remaining months of a contract that is rapidly expiring. Someone close to palace circles has remarked that the contrast between Harry's former life of state banquets and his current life promoting cookie documentaries at film festivals hasn't gone unnoticed by the King or the Prince of Wales. Speaking of the palace, the atmosphere remains icy despite the desperate attempts by the Sussex camp to signal a turning point in 2026. You may have seen the headlines regarding Princess Catherine's true feelings finally coming to light in a new biography. A source behind closed doors has revealed that while the Sussexes were busy sharing their truth, the Princess of Wales was quietly observing, her initial wariness of Meghan now fully vindicated. A well-placed source indicates that Catherine's hunch about her sister-in-law, that the American actress was more interested in the platform than the duty, rang true almost immediately. This has only deepened the divide. While Harry is said to be excited about a potential UK return, a source within the inner circle claims that Prince William is adamant that there is no way back. The trust is gone, and no amount of curated Valentine's Day photos of Princess Lilibet in a pink dress holding red balloons can mend a bridge that has been thoroughly burnt. Then we have the legal dramas, which continue to drain both their finances and their public standing. Harry's long-running battle over his UK security has taken a bizarre and controversial turn. A source behind closed doors suggests a ruling is imminent that could actually restore his taxpayer-funded protection. If this happens, it will be a PR disaster for the couple in the eyes of the British public. A longtime family acquaintance has pointed out the sheer audacity of demanding that hard-pressed taxpayers foot the bill for security for a couple who lives in a $30 million mansion and has no intention of performing a single day of public service. It would give them the ultimate half-in, half-out status they craved from the start. All the perks, none of the work. Someone close to palace circles tells me that the king is in a difficult position. He loves his son, but he knows that giving in to these demands would cause a constitutional headache and public outrage. Meanwhile, Meghan's lifestyle brand, which has undergone more rebrands than a failing high street bank, is now reportedly focusing on the UK market. After the as-ever leather bookmarks and the Valentine's jam collections, she apparently believes she can dominate the British jam market. A well-meaning staff member has let slip that the Duchess is gearing up to pull the trigger on international shipping. One has to admire the optimism, if not the delusion. Does she truly believe that the British public, who have been the target of her various bombshells for years, will now queue up to buy her expensive preserves? A well-placed source suggests that this move is more about financial necessity than business strategy. The Hollywood experiment is at risk, and the lifestyle empire is looking more like a boutique hobby. As we move further into February, the narrative seems to be one of constant motion with very little progress. They appear at Sundance, they appear at the basketball, they leak stories about their close bond, yet the doors to the palace remain firmly shut, and the high-value contracts are drying up. A source behind closed doors has even mentioned that Harry is feeling increasingly uncomfortable with the level of curation required to keep the brand afloat. He is a man who was raised on the reality of duty, now living in a world of artifice where even a walk in the garden is captioned and scheduled. It must be exhausting to live a life that is constantly being decoded by body language experts and cynical commentators like myself. But then they chose this path. They chose to trade the stability of the monarchy for the volatility of the influencer market. And in 2026, we are seeing the consequences of that trade. It is a fascinating, if somewhat tragic, spectacle to observe. Two people who had the world at their feet, now reduced to selling bookmarks and executive producing documentaries about Girl Scouts, all while fighting for the right to have the public pay for their bodyguards. It's a cautionary tale of what happens when ego outstrips reality. Would you like me to delve deeper into the specific financial filings of the Archewell Foundation to see where that cookie money is really going? As the Californian sun begins to set on what many are calling the Sussexes' make or break year, the curated facade of Montecito seems to be thinning, revealing a reality of professional uncoupling and a desperate, almost frantic bid for royal relevance that smells more of survival than of success. Good evening to those of you joining me once again for a bit of clarity amidst the noise. It is a pleasure to have your company as we peel back the latest layers of this never-ending transatlantic soap opera. We find ourselves in mid-February, and if the first 6 weeks of 2026 are anything to go by, the Duke and Duchess of Sussex are discovering that the currency of victimhood has finally hit a period of hyperinflation. While they might still command a front-row seat at the NBA All-Star Game, as they did just this past Valentine's weekend, the view from the cheap seats tells a far more fractured story. A source within the inner circle has whispered that while the smiles for the Jumbotron were rehearsed to the millisecond, the atmosphere in the car ride home was altogether more chilly. It seems the power couple narrative is becoming increasingly difficult to maintain when the power in question is flickering like a faulty bulb. Let us look at that basketball appearance in Los Angeles. To the casual observer, it was a picture of domestic bliss. Meghan in her monochromatic navy, Harry dutifully by her side. However, a well-meaning staff member who has observed the couple in these high-pressure social environments suggests that Harry's discomfort is becoming harder to mask. He looks, quite frankly, like a man who would rather be anywhere else than under the harsh glare of a stadium light, performing for a public that has largely moved on. While Meghan appears to thrive on the perfectly curated nature of these outings, insiders behind closed doors claim that Harry is growing weary of the stage-managed life. He is a man who was born into a system he claimed to hate, only to find himself trapped in a new, perhaps more demanding system of his wife's design. The professional drift between them is now so wide it could accommodate an aircraft carrier. We are seeing what a well-placed source calls a professional uncoupling of the highest order. Meghan is laser-focused on her lifestyle brand, now rebranded and pushed as ever, attempting to dominate the UK jam market and the wellness economy. One has to wonder, with a touch of cynicism, if the world truly needs another celebrity-branded preserve, or if this is simply a desperate attempt to find a revenue stream that doesn't involve airing family grievances. Meanwhile, Harry seems to be retreating into his own silos, Invictus and his legal battles. It is as if they have realized that as a joint venture, the Sussex brand is toxic, so they are trying to see if they can survive as solo acts. Financially, the picture is even bleaker. A source close to palace circles has hinted that the Montecito lifestyle, with its $20 million mortgage and astronomical security costs, is becoming a millstone around their necks. We've heard reports of American PR agencies flatly rejecting their accounts, labeling them as difficult and cheap, expecting Kardashian-level results on a shoestring budget. If you aren't willing to pay the market rate for the best spin doctors in the world, you eventually find yourself spinning out of control. There is also the matter of Archewell. A source behind closed doors suggests that the foundation is under intense scrutiny, with financial discrepancies and ballooning expenses causing more than a few sleepless nights. If the crown jewel of their humanitarian mission is found to be tarnished, the reputational damage will be terminal. Then there is the matter of the king. As April approaches and King Charles prepares for his visit to the United States, Harry is reportedly desperate for a reconciliation. A well-placed source claims the Duke has extended an invitation for his father to visit the Montecito mansion, a plea for a grandfatherly moment with Archie and Lilibet. But one must ask, is this a genuine desire for family healing, or a calculated PR move to reestablish the royal connection that is their only true source of value? The king is said to be very much wanting to see his grandchildren, but the shadow of the Prince of Wales looms large. Prince William, according to a new biography making waves this month, feels he has lost his brother to a sea of paranoia and bitterness. William's side of the story is finally emerging, and it paints a picture of a future king who is not angry, but profoundly saddened by what he sees as Harry's self-imposed exile into a world of alternative truths. While Harry looks east toward London, Meghan seems to be warning him to keep his head down. With the royal family currently navigating the ongoing fallout of the Prince Andrew scandal, a source within the inner circle claims Meghan is terrified of guilt by association. She has reportedly told Harry to stay well away from the crisis, worried that any involvement would further damage their fragile Hollywood standing. It's a fascinating bit of irony, isn't it? The woman who campaigned for transparency now seems quite keen on the quiet life when it serves her commercial interests. And what of the other family? In a poignant twist, Thomas Markle has surfaced again from his home in the Philippines. Following a grueling operation that resulted in the loss of a leg, he is once again pleading for a glimpse of the grandchildren he has never met. A longtime family acquaintance says the situation is heartbreaking, yet the silence from Montecito remains absolute. It seems the compassion they preach to the world is a selective commodity, rarely extended to those who share their DNA but don't fit the brand. Even Meghan's cinematic ambitions are hitting the buffers. Her latest project, the Cookie Queens documentary, is reportedly struggling to find a distributor. In a market that is increasingly cautious, the Sussex name no longer guarantees a bidding war. A source behind closed doors has described the project as a potential disaster, with streamers wary of investing in content that the public seems increasingly inclined to ignore. When you lose the interest of the people who write the checks, the game is very nearly up. So, as we watch them move through these early weeks of 2026, we see a couple at a crossroads. Harry, longing for his old life and his father's blessing. Meghan, doubling down on a commercial future that looks increasingly precarious. They are still holding hands for the cameras, yes, but the grip looks tighter, more forced. The us against the world narrative only works if the world is actually paying attention. And right now, the world seems more interested in the quiet dignity of the working royals than the noisy desperation of the Montecito exiles. It is a long way down from the balcony of Buckingham Palace to a courtside seat in Inglewood, and one suspects the descent isn't over yet. Would you like me to delve deeper into the specific financial filings of the Archewell Foundation to see where that money is really going? The Montecito dream is looking increasingly like a fragmented reality as 2026 begins, with the professional uncoupling of the Duke and Duchess of Sussex now moving from a quiet whisper to a public spectacle of separate lives and dwindling influence. Hello, friends. It is a pleasure to have you with us again for a deep look into the latest maneuvers from across the Atlantic. As we find ourselves mid-February, the image being projected from California is one of frantic activity. Yet a well-placed source suggests that beneath the glossy surface of red carpets and courtside seats, the foundations are starting to crumble. We saw them just yesterday, didn't we? Prince Harry and Meghan Markle sitting courtside at the NBA All-Star Game in Inglewood. There they were, sandwiched between Hollywood elite like Queen Latifah, laughing for the cameras in what some are calling a desperate attempt to maintain relevance in a town that has a very short memory for yesterday's royals. But if you look closely at the footage, the chemistry seems performative, almost as if they are following a script that neither of them quite believes in anymore. A source within the inner circle has noted that while the us against the world brand is still being sold to the public, the reality in Montecito is one of professional uncoupling. Meghan has fully pivoted into her own world. She is now leaning heavily into her lifestyle brand, as ever, the renamed version of that rather clunky American Riviera orchard we heard so much about last year. A source behind closed doors tells me that she is obsessed with dominating the British jam market. It's almost comical, isn't it? From the steps of St. George's Chapel to competing with Wilkin and Sons. Someone close to palace circles remarked recently that the irony is not lost on the family. She spent years trying to escape the constraints of British tradition, only to spend her 2026 trying to sell British-style luxury back to the very people she left behind. The brand's expansion plans involve pop-up shops and London bookshops, specifically the Godmothers, a name that feels like a heavy-handed nod to her Hollywood support system. But the public response has been lukewarm at best, with social media critics labeling the move a pathetic attempt to salvage a struggling enterprise. And then there's the Netflix of it all. The $100 million golden goose has finally stopped laying. Reports are surfacing that their massive overall deal has been downgraded to a mere first-look agreement. In plain English, they've been demoted. Netflix isn't funding their lifestyle anymore. They're simply waiting to see if anything worth buying actually comes out of Archewell. A well-placed source indicates that Meghan's series, With Love Meghan, is not being renewed for a second season despite the PR spin. It reportedly ranked near the bottom of Netflix's charts. a stinging blow for someone who sees herself as a global tastemaker. Instead, they are being offered holiday specials, the Hollywood equivalent of a consolation prize. There's even a rumor from a source behind closed doors that they are dangling a Princess Diana documentary as a final lifeline to keep the Netflix executives from walking away entirely. One can only imagine the horror that news would cause in London. The real drama, however, is the escalating panic over King Charles's health and the succession. We are hearing from someone close to palace circles that there is a genuine sense of urgency in Harry's camp. Following the king's recent health update, where it was revealed he is responding exceptionally well to treatment, the monarch has reportedly instructed aides to explore a peace summit. The king, ever the father, wants to see his grandchildren, Prince Archie and Princess Lilibet. But let's not mistake parental affection for institutional weakness. A well-placed source suggests that while the king is open to a conversation, Prince William is quite another story. A well-meaning staff member has let it slip that the Prince of Wales has effectively walled off his brother. William is focused on the crown and the stability of his own family, and he views Harry as a leaky sieve that cannot be trusted with any proximity to the institution. There is a theory circulating among those who know the family well that Prince Harry is terrified of a future where his brother is king. He knows that once the crown passes to William, the door to the royal fold will be bolted and barred for good. Catherine, too, has reportedly tried to keep a bridge open, but even her legendary patience has its limits. A source within the inner circle reveals that she has urged Harry to come to the UK alone for his next visit, to prove he is his own man, and not merely an appendage to his wife's latest marketing campaign. It's a sharp bit of advice, and one that I suspect will be ignored given how tightly Meghan controls their shared narrative. And let's talk about the money, because it always comes back to the bank balance. With the Netflix deal in its twilight phase and the security battle still draining their coffers, the financial independence they craved looks more like financial anxiety. Meghan is reportedly planning a massive UK expansion for As Ever this spring, including high-end jams and marmalades. One can only imagine the reception she expects. A source behind closed doors says she genuinely believes she can dominate the UK market. It takes a certain kind of confidence, or perhaps a total lack of self-awareness, to think the British public will be lining up to buy jam from a woman who has spent the last 5 years criticizing their institutions. Furthermore, they are reportedly facing a PR nightmare, as major U.S. agencies have branded them difficult and cheap, refusing to take on their account. They've had to rehire old representatives in a desperate bid to fix an image that is increasingly seen as toxic in Hollywood circles. Meanwhile, a well-placed source has hinted at a new biography that is about to drop more bombshells regarding the early days of their marriage. Apparently, Harry is still nursing a grievance that Meghan wasn't given the same level of security as Catherine when they were first dating. He still sees it as one rule for them and another for me. It's the same old tune played on a very tired violin. The public sentiment, especially here in the UK, has moved on. They are seen less as rebels and more as a cautionary tale of what happens when you trade duty for celebrity, and find that celebrity is a very demanding and very fickle master. The ongoing security trial in London only adds to the sense of a couple stuck in the past, fighting battles that the rest of the world has already forgotten. As we look toward the rest of 2026, the question isn't whether they will return to the UK, but in what capacity. Will they be invited to the Invictus Games? Possibly. Will they be welcome at the palace? Highly unlikely. A longtime family acquaintance remarked that the Sussexes are now in a test of endurance. They have to prove they are more than just their grievances. But as Meghan focuses on her Valentine's Day collections and Harry sits in the VIP section of basketball games, one has to wonder if they've already lost the plot of their own story. The Sussex comeback they've been promising for 2026 is looking less like a royal return and more like a desperate rebranding. They are two people who walked away from the most prestigious brand in the world, only to find themselves struggling to sell biscuits and jam to an increasingly indifferent audience. It is, quite frankly, a bit of a mess. Would you like me to look into the specific details of that rumored Princess Diana documentary and how the Prince of Wales is reportedly planning to block it?